All right, boys. Overdue collapse of a 9 to 5 job. They're dying.
Companies are doing mass layoffs
They're
while complaining
dying.
about not being able to find enough employees. Some workers are min-maxing the system by working multiple full-time jobs at the same time, while others need to work hours of unpaid overtime at just one.
I would be actually really curious to see how many people are genuinely working um 2 full-time jobs. Full-time I consider anything over like 32 hours a week. I'd be really curious.
One job. This is not to mention that the gig economy is consuming entire sections of the workforce. The 9 to 5 was created by American labor unions in the 1800s and became
Worst idea ever, dude. Worst idea ever.
mainstream over 100 years ago, when jobs looked like this and this. It was revolutionary for its time.
Dude, hold on. You guys can't tell me that this dude right here. Hold on, right? It was right before this guy pops up. They look a little young to be working.
This. It was revolutionary
That's kind of crazy that at the same time the 9 to 5 rule was implemented, I don't think child labor laws were a thing.
for its time. But how many of the modern problems in corporate America are caused by trying to make an outdated system fit with every single modern job?
To the U.S.,
Probably like all of them.
8.4 million people in the nation are working multiple jobs.
850,000 jobs. Wages went up for American workers.
Instead, they're working multiple jobs. It's called being
Full-time
overemployed.
and one part-time, but I need both of them to pay my bills every month, my rent and groceries, so just working all the time.
A report by the management consulting firm McKinsey & Company found that 2/3 of the average human's wealth is in the work they can do over their lifetime. Everybody has time, effort, and experience they can trade for money, and those tradable commodities are worth twice as much as all the other assets that the average person.
Right? Yeah. It's basically like you grind. You kind of have two options in life, right? You can either just sit there and do the actual grind and earn currency, or you can do things in like it's kind of like in PoE, how you can either get a whole bunch of div drops and buy your final set piece, or like not set piece, but like your end game build, or you could just sit there and craft it yourself. Like you can do the work or grind. It's the same thing, really.
Possesses. A regular 9 to 5 job has been a great way for billions of people to safely exchange a predictable amount of their time for a predictable paycheck, with predictable career advancement as they gain more
It's the safe bet, right? It's the the normal course.
experience. But this one-size-fits-all model for work doesn't fit with every job, and trying to make it work has been bad for employees and bad for companies for 3 reasons, which is causing 3 equally terrible trends in the job market. The first trend is that it makes time a worthless asset. The Ford Motor Company was one of the first businesses in America to adopt the 9 to 5 40-hour work week. Henry Ford did this to make his company the most attractive place for auto workers to
And Fords are trash from what I've heard too. I owned one. I'm not really gonna judge. It was only like a $12,000 car, but come on, let's not let those people be the example, and let them introduce a work policy.
get a job. This allowed him to pull talent away from other automakers without paying his workers more. In order to compete with Ford, other automakers were forced to offer the same 40-hour work week with paid overtime. Eventually, in order to compete with the automakers, other companies were also forced to offer 9 to 5 jobs so that their best workers didn't quit and go and work on the car assembly line. These auto workers had tightly defined and repetitive tasks, so unless the workers succumbed to exhaustion, they could do a consistent amount of work for every hour they spent at their post, and every additional hour would produce the same amount of output. If you work in a modern office job, you will know that your work is nothing like this. Sometimes there is a lot to do, and sometimes there is nothing to do, but you still need to be there 8 hours a day.
Right, like when there's a lot of work to do, you still need to work at least 40 hours, and when there's not a lot of work to do, you still need to work 40 hours. It's true. Not wrong.
Looking busy no matter what. Back when the 40-hour week was being fought for by workers' unions, most Americans worked in manufacturing. But today, most people work in the services sector, which is more.
I don't think I know anybody working in manufacturing. Like that, this part that he's talking about here is so true. And like again, everyone's gonna have different experiences in life, but like as far as like blue collar workers, I guess like when I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think about my family. Who's I guess it is a couple. I would definitely say majority though do not, and they are more of like not even necessarily corporate, but like work from home, cubicle, desk job for sure.
in manufacturing. But today, most people work in the services sector, which is more diverse than you might expect. Unless you are working on a farm or in a factory, you are a service worker, and your job
Yeah.
could be anything from making strategic corporate decisions to making coffees. Clearly, these jobs are very different, and should have a different schedule, but most of the corporate world has tried to make the 9-to-5 fit all jobs. But this doesn't work, because no service jobs have tasks consistently delivered on a fine-tuned production line. Work comes and goes as internal and external customers make demands, and that means when people are busy and need to do more than 8 hours in a day to finish their work, they are expected to work, quote, reasonable unpaid overtime. According to an ADP Research Institute study,
It's ridiculous, dude. I think it's insane how far it's, and I feel like I've kind of slowly watched it, like being in my like mid mid 20s this point. Like I kind of watched just like the culture shift from like when my dad was working when I was younger. Like a lot of the work that he was doing outside of 40 hours was actually voluntary. Like he was actually genuinely working longer hour weeks because he was taking time to learn things and all of that stuff. While nowadays it's just like it's almost expected, right? Like you'll sit there and say, "Oh, I've already done 40. I probably got another like 10 hours worth of work." And your boss will just be like, "Yeah, that's great. Get her done, baby."
of office professionals, unpaid overtime jumped to an average of 9.2 hours per week in 2021. More than
That's crazy. Like that is a whole extra not that is a whole extra day a week of unpaid overtime. That's crazy.
a full extra day to keep up with employer demands. But when there is little to no work to do because a project has just been completed or sales are seasonally slow, workers are still expected to put in the 40 hours a week because that's what the business is paying them for. If you're in this kind of job, your best option is to try and find something that makes you look busy. But if you don't have something to work on, you are probably going to be given meaningless tasks just to fill the mandatory 8-hour day.
100%.
If this was just another story about companies screwing over their workers with outdated business practices, it wouldn't need a video. But the 40-hour work week isn't even good for companies. So it's time to learn how money works to find out why we might be in the midst of the overdue collapse of the 9-to-5. This week's lesson was sponsored by Manscaped. It's time to throw away that bulky
Let's
beard
see it,
trimmer
baby.
you've been
Let's see
using
the
for
juicy
years
ad.
and make an
Come on.
upgrade. Because Manscaped is going full head-to-toe grooming with their Beard Hedger Pro Kit.
Okay.
With a powerful 7,200 RPM motor and titanium-coated T-blade, this trimmer is strong enough to tackle the thickest of hair you'll find on your face, neck, and chest. Whether you prefer a 5 o'clock shadow or a tame lion's mane, it comes with 20 precision length settings so you can customize your perfect beard length and
W
style.
ad, man.
This beard
W
trimmer
ad.
is waterproof and cordless, so it's a great tool for trimming in the shower or over the sink with virtually no messy cleanup. It gets up to 60 minutes of charge and has a 3
I will say you gotta be careful with the sink though. It clogs. They'll clog if you put too much hair down there. So if you do the shaving, like if you're at the point where you need this for shaving, make sure you Drano.
level charge indicator, letting you know when it needs some juice. Manscaped also created dermatologist-tested beard care products to help you grow and nourish a wonderful beard like beard oil, beard balm, beard conditioner, and more. Get your hands on
Beard
the
growth?
Beard Hedger Pro. Head over to manscaped.com/howmoneyworks today and get 20% off plus free shipping when you use promo code HMW at checkout. Join over 10 million men worldwide.
Not bad.
who trust
20% off
Manscaped
and
today.
free shipping. That's pretty clutch.
According to data from the U.S. Census Bureau, McKinsey & Company, and
All right.
compiled by Statista, growth in gig work and freelance jobs have outgrown typical permanent jobs by 500% over the last.
Yeah, I mean this is pretty true. Like I know so many people now that are kind of doing like the freelance route and yeah, just these odds and ends jobs. This is crazy. It's wild to think about because like growing up, like it definitely was not like that. You know what I mean? Everybody always kind of like worked at the same company for like ever. Like it's wild to. I never really think about that until I watch some of these videos sometimes.
Decade. Gig work apps have become very popular with unskilled workers due to their low barrier to entry and flexible working arrangements. Someone with a phone and a bike can start working for a food delivery service like Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash, Grubhub, or all of them all at the same time in less than an hour by filling out an online form.
True.
This has been a highly appealing alternative to minimum wage jobs that still rely on the antiquated process of handing in a resume, spending weeks doing job interviews, only to still get ghosted by a fast food joint.
Which I actually think is great. Like a couple of my buddies, when they got out of college, freshly graduated, it was peak COVID. Like there was no getting a job. There was no like in their field for their degrees, like things were just straight up shut down. So all they did was just say, you know what, we still got bills to pay, and they sat there and they started Uber Eats. I they did another one too, kind of like simultaneously. I don't know, but like I think having jobs like this in your ecosystem is a great idea because it truly can give somebody that maybe is only making a little bit of money at their main job, a little over minimum wage, which we all know, and no matter what state for the most part, isn't enough to actually live there. But it gives everybody, whether you want to sit there and put your stupid ego aside and think that you're too good to do it, like it gives everybody a very good chance at getting an income. Because for the people that don't have cars and stuff like that, a lot of people who are carless live in cities. So if you can somehow get a bike, boom, congrats, you've got this. You're started.
Joint offering $7.25 an hour for an unpredictable schedule. Gig work jobs usually also pay terribly, but people get to work as much as they want, when they want, and they can work around another full-time job for extra money.
This goes a really long way. Having giving an employee completely free flexibility is more of a net positive, I think, than companies think. I think because so many people sit there and cheat and abuse it because they work already under shitty people, as long as it's led properly and accountability is still held the right way, I think it is one of the best management styles you can have. Certain professions, obviously, like events happen from 9 to 5 and it's not for everybody, but in the opportunities that it can, I think this is 100% the way to go.
Even with all of the problems of gig work, you can see why it has become so popular. The popularity of freelancing and private contracting has also exploded. This is more popular among skilled workers who can sell their services to businesses just like an employee, but with no ongoing agreement. They are only paid when there is work to be done. Private contracts are usually an agreeable.
Yeah, and people love doing this because it gives you. Everybody always sits here and talks about the American dream of freedom. Like that is the true, like that is the freedom right there. Is you work for yourself, you still partner with these big corps and take on the same projects that you would probably take on while working there, but they're not your boss. And boom, you're good to go. And I was talking to somebody else about this, like, big corp can sit there and, scum you out of it and not pay you. And of course, when you're first starting out is very tough. You need to be smart. You need to, get things in writing, get things written in a contract, all of those things. It's just kind of common business sense. You'll learn as you go. But this is why so many people want to do it. It's not that people don't want to work. It's just everybody has such a very different, unique lifestyle that 9 to 5 does not always work for them. And it's better sometimes for people to work through the night or work from like 12 to 8. That's why those jobs are so appealing to a lot of people.
Upon price for an agreed upon outcome, like $10,000 to build a company website, but they can also be billed hourly for roles like security, administrative assistants, or on-demand workers. According to a report by the management consulting firm Oliver Wyman, healthcare workers have been one of the fastest growing groups of workers ditching typical permanent roles in favor of working as private contractors. On-call nurses, doctors, and hospital support staff already work unpredictable hours, so they don't sacrifice much by working as contractors instead of a direct.
Bro, because and again, I'm not going to talk for every hospital, I don't know, but like I have a couple of friends that are in that field, that is some family members, like, bro, they need to work like 4 12s. Like it's not that those people aren't willing to sit there and put in, 48 hours and whatnot in a week, but it's just more about, dude, like, why do we need to cram this into 4 days? Like, that's just crazy. You hardly have any time to do your grocery shopping, or God forbid they're still in like doing any kind of schooling. Like those days are still very early on in their careers. Like nobody wants to, why do it? It's not that they don't want to sit there and put in the grind and learn. I mean, some people don't, they're just lazy. You're always going to have those kinds of people. But they want to work. It's just not around your shitty schedule.
Employee. According to the report, some nurses have elected to work in the temporary staffing market so they can take on fewer hours, as mental health has become a top priority for workers in the industry. Private contractors in all industries are usually paid more for their time than permanent employees because the business only pays for the hours of services they actually need, which means most of the time their total out-of-pocket will be lower. With mass layoffs dominating the news cycle, people are also finding out the hard way that if they work in an at-will employment state, their 9 to 5 doesn't give them much security anyway. So, workers at all skill levels are seeing they can make more, And businesses are realizing they can cut down on expenses by doing away with the rigid 9-to-5 workday, which is the second reason it's slowly becoming a relic of corporate history. But the death of the 9-to-5 is not going to be a good deal for everybody. Unfortunately for now, businesses are going to be the biggest winners out of this shift, even if they have to pay their contractors and gig workers slightly more per hour. The first loss is benefits. If you work as a private contractor, you are becoming your own boss, which means that even though you are making more money,
Which means you're not getting that sweet bundle deal that your company gets on insurance that is significantly cheaper than going privately and by yourself because your company is 500, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people once you're like massive corp, like because they're getting, yeah, I mean, it's give and take. You know what I mean? Of course.
there's overhead that you become responsible for. Benefits like paid time off, training, retirement plans, accounting, and health
I mean, that's even further than what I was thinking. Like, you know what I mean? That's definitely, I wasn't even talking this stuff. This is 100% true.
insurance are going to come out of your pocket. Health insurance through a regular employer is normally far more affordable than private options. For gig workers, this can be especially tough because health insurance premiums for people who ride motorized scooters through late night traffic to deliver food to people's homes is simply unaffordable on the income of a delivery driver. Even if you are doing highly skilled contracting, if you don't manage these expenses carefully, you will end up with less in your pocket than if you just stuck with a regular permanent position. And your loss is their gain. According to a survey conducted by Forbes, small and medium enterprises were hiring more contract workers because it simplified their accounting and reduced the ever-increasing expenses of human resource management. It's not just small companies either.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much more sense too, especially when you're in like the super small startup and, you know, you need projects done, but you don't necessarily want to sit there and commit to a long-term thing. It's how a lot of small business grows is doing independent contracting. I think it's a smart way to go. And I think it's just it's a net positive on both ends of the parties.
According to CNBC, contract workers have outnumbered direct employees at Google and other large tech companies since 2018.
Wait, that's actually nuts. So this is kind of where like my knowledge of it fell off. Like almost everyone I know, once their companies went like true big corp, like not these small medium sized businesses like that last statistic just talked about. I always kind of thought like Google, Facebook, Amazon, you know, these massive ones. I didn't actually think that they did much just contracting anymore. I mean, you know, we always see like postings and stuff like that, and we're like, oh, that's kind of funny to think that they're doing that, but that's nuts.
And the ratio became even more skewed during COVID. Google already has large human resources and accounting departments, so they are pursuing contract work for two other reasons. The first is that the most talented engineers have realized that they can make more money working off one-off projects for lots of companies than they could by being a full-time employee with just one company. The demand for talent during the good times
It also keeps your job fresh. You know what I mean? Oh, I kind of want to get better at doing this and doing these types of projects or going on to this skill set. When you're sitting there doing it for a company directly, you're usually just sitting there. You kind of start to tell yourself like this isn't just benefiting me, this is benefiting them, and you'll kind of sit there and talk yourself out of wanting to do these extra skills or take time to do it outside of work. But when you're an independent contractor or a freelancer, you know that it's just you just at this point you're thinking time versus money. Is it worth me adding this in? And that's a lot easier of a decision to make than, you know, when you're sitting there struggling with a career as well.
meant that these companies just had to pay what these top engineers were asking. Some highly specialized engineers could bill up to $10,000 an hour for their work to these
Whoa.
companies. Even for a company as rich as Google, it was better to pay them only for the hours. They really needed them, instead of paying them millions of dollars a year as a permanent salary for the odd project where their skills would be needed. The second reason is that during bad times, like right now, getting rid of contractors doesn't count as layoffs. So
Exactly.
companies can easily cut expenses without technically laying off any staff. Big layoffs
All
signal to
right.
investors and other employees that the business is in a bad shape, and that they would be better off investing their money or building a career somewhere else. There are three groups that are really going to benefit from the death of the 9-to-5, but their gain is all at the expense of one big group that statistically you are a part of: the regular workers. Entry-level workers who can get gig work are not paid well, but they weren't paid well in minimum wage jobs either. They have just gained some flexibility to work when they want. High-skilled workers who can move to contract roles can make a lot of money by working for the highest bidding company. They only lost the idea of job security that never really existed for them anyway. Companies are also taking full advantage of the death of the 9-to-5 by cutting down on their biggest expense center: The losers are regular workers right in the middle who are in roles that can't be gigafied but aren't in demand enough to be contracted out. The fixed expenses of operating as a contractor, health insurance, business licensing, accounting, and everything else means it's only worth it for people earning well over the average wage. If you are earning $60,000 as a permanent employee, you would have to charge $80,000 a year as a contractor to break even. And not many businesses are going to pay that $20,000 premium for a standard job.
Yeah, it obviously when you sit there and work for yourself, you're gonna sit there and have to work harder, and you don't have a manager that's getting on top of you, hopefully helping you learn and stuff like that. So you do have to put a lot more time into yourself. Um, but once you do that, it's a lot easier to, and then once you kind of get that experience, it's a lot easier to get up to that 80,000 instead of the 60,000 because you're doing your skills more efficiently. You're doing them in a quicker time frame. They're maybe presenting better depending on what it is. Yeah.
New regulations intended to protect contractors and workers are another problem. If a contractor files for unemployment after their job is completed with a company, they can file an SS8 form with the IRS, which can trigger an audit to determine if that contractor and other contractors working for the company meet the requirements to be counted as a permanent employee. If they do, then the company has to cover their unemployment benefits and has to provide other benefits to every other contractor in the business as well. Businesses don't want to take that risk. So
I was gonna say there's no shot that big corp wants to be running that kind of risk. No way. You know them. It's better safe than sorry.
they use staffing agencies to handle all the compliance for them. According to data from the American Staffing Association, most contractors now work through middleman staffing companies. For contractors working through these middlemen, it can combine all of the problems of permanent employment with none of the benefits of being a private contractor. And that's the third reason why the 9-to-5 is going extinct. It lets companies pull some creative business maneuvers. The aged care industry has been one of the biggest victims of this shift. Go and watch my latest video on the deadly monetization of nursing homes to see how contract staffing
Oh, dude, yo, these people are scumbags. I guess hold on, wait a second
is
here.
being used as a tool to maximize returns on a failing business model. As someone who's done contracting work time to time in the finance space, I will be writing an article on how to make the most out of these risky roles over on my totally free email newsletter Compounded Daily. So make sure to sign up at the link below to keep on learning how money works.
That's crazy, man. This is a W video. He had a good ad in there. He had obviously everything that was in there was just really good. I totally agree with almost everything that is in this video, man. There's something at the very end I wanted to hit on. What was it? Oh, yeah. I mean, I knew people that worked in these nursing homes and stuff like that, and they were getting like minimally paid to do like a whole bunch of extra work. Like, I'm not surprised. I haven't like heard much about that industry, obviously, in like a long time, probably since like early high school type of stuff. But yeah, that's so funny to like hear these things going on because I look back on this and I'm like, it makes so much sense. Let's see. I'm the top performer in my job and recently had a review. My lead literally wrote, "This is the highest score I've ever given to anybody." Basically, goes above and beyond in every category. Had nothing to improve upon and zero issues brought up. 130% efficiency. So company goal is 90%. Okay. A week later, I received the lowest raise I'd ever got. I asked about it, and we had a meeting. They told me that I didn't require the 5 hours of overtime every week for most of the year. What? Imagine if my company just paid good employees to do good work instead of running at 80%. But who works an extra 5 hours gets bigger raises than me. Now I'm looking for a different job. Good, man. That's good. Get the hell out of there, dude. Fuck them. In software engineering, it goes like this: if one person can produce one workable line of code per hour, which is a misunderstanding, then a million line program would take 1,000,000 hours. Therefore, a million programmers can produce the program in 1 hour. At this, you're not coding it out, right? True. It's crazy. This is a W video, though, man.